I'm George Morang, your host for CSA Television, and we're visiting today with the tax assessor, Donald Williamson. Donald, thank you very much for seeing us today.
My pleasure to meet you.
It's particularly appropriate for me because I'm a new homeowner. I've lived in the area for 20 years, but I just recently bought some property. And I want to congratulate you particularly on your fine staff and how helpful and cordial they were.
George, I appreciate those fine comments about my staff. I have 153 full-time employees and another 30 part-time, and the one thing I've stressed ever since I've been elected a little over 4 years ago is the public service.
This is an elected office.
This is elected. I was elected the first time a little over 4 years ago and recently re-elected. And as I say, public service is one of the main things that I've been all about as assessor, and it's something that I stress to my employees.
Well, it means a lot when money's involved. And the individual, I might suggest in particular also that it can help a lot. The brochures you put out are very informative, and it makes it much easier when you do have questions to be able to refer to some part of the brochure and asking those questions.
Well, George, one of the things that I've been doing to try to get the public service out to the people is to make them aware of the various programs the assessor administers. It's not like the old days when the only basic program they had was the veterans exemption, and that was $4,000, and it's still in effect, but it's kind of outmoded, outdated. There's less than 500 in the whole county, and the reason for that is the homeowner's exemption is $7,000. You can only have one of them on your main residence, so of course everyone applies for the $7,000.
Well, we might go back at this point and say, how are the assessments made for the valuation of your property?
That's a very good question to ask, George, because a lot of property owners probably don't understand just how our office does arrive at the valuation or assessment on their property.
And there's a lot of properties out there too in that's enormous area.
First off, we are required to base it on comparable sales, on what a person's property is worth as of the lien date. Now, there's several lien dates. In the case of a purchase of the property, it's the date usually that the recording of the deed takes place, the date escrow closed. If it's new construction, it's the date that the new construction is finished. In the case of a decline in value, where someone has asked us to review the property because it's gone down below where we were assessing them, and we can temporarily maybe lower their assessment, then the lien date for that.
Well, how many properties are there involved in the San Bernardino area?
We have over 754,000 parcels throughout San Bernardino County.
That's improved and unimproved, business and...
That's a combination of both, and businesses also.
Yeah, business and private. And the, I understand under Prop 13, this is a state mandated program, and you're the county administrator for this state program.
Yes, Proposition 13 passed in 1978. It required that the assessor would value the property only two times under Prop 13. One is as of the date of purchase, the other is the date of new construction. Other than that, under Prop 13, in the interim years, we had the maximum of 2% inflationary factors required by Prop 13.
That's why you'll see, even though you haven't been reappraised, you'll see a slight increase in the appraisal. Now, there's quite a few other items. Now, well, first of all, if you have the some 754,000 properties, and the assessed valuation, I think, from the brochure is something like
it's a little over $70 billion in assessed value, which comes out to a little over $70 million in property taxes.
And where does that tax money go? Okay,
that's divided up amongst all the participants. The school district gets about 48% of that. The county gets between 12 and 13% of that. The cities, the RDAs, and the various districts.
What's the RDA?
Redevelopment Agency.
Redevelopment. And these are monies that can be used for grants for the improvement of properties and
for the RDAs.
Yeah,
they have various projects within the RDA boundaries that they spend the money on. They get about 12% also. Now, one thing I don't want to mislead you on, even though the county gets 12-13% and the cities get about 12%, each city does not get 12%. Some cities get more and some less, because the state dictates as to what the percentage is that each jurisdiction, each city gets.
Now, outside of Prop 13, I notice here on the brochure, or on my tax bill, that there are several other items there for special districts and so forth, funds. Now, those fees or funds can only be arrived at by a vote of the public?
Under Proposition 13, that 1% general tax levy up on the tax bill is the part that comes from what the county assessor has something to do with.
Mm-hmm.
All the rest of the things that are listed under that on the tax bill are either outstanding bond and indebtedness that was yet to be paid for after Prop 13 passed, or special assessments that either the voters passed or special assessments that the governing body, such as the city council or something passed, and they're collecting it on the tax bill. But they have nothing to do with the 1%.
So, of course, the city being within there, for a city, it being within the city has its own tax structure, does it, or does it purely sales tax?
Well, the city does get a small portion of the sales tax, and they also get a portion of the property tax, along with other fees that they collect that the state allows. The things dealing with the property tax, of course, are listed on the tax bill. There's a phone number there for people to contact that agency if they have questions about that. And of course, I have 9 offices listed throughout San Bernardino County if they have questions related to their assessed value.
That's one of the things we'll include at the end of the program, is a list of, or a contact telephone number that people can call to find out how to get information. Now, on the appraisal, of course, everything on this situation of keys from the appraisal, and that is your professional evaluation of what the property is worth on the current market in its particular area.
As of the date of your purchase, our valuation would be made from the date that you closed escrow. And we would use comparable sales to see if the purchase price that you paid was truly market value.
Now, what if I improve my property?
Now, if you have new construction, you have room additions or
What about a new roof?
Okay, now certain things
Replacement.
are not considered new construction under Prop 13. You can do an awful lot of maintenance. You can paint the property, your home inside or out. You can replace the roof with a similar roof. You can do an awful lot, replace the carpet. None of that is considered new construction under Prop 13.
But if you put additions on the building and so forth, and for that you get a permit, then you will be made aware of the improvement from the information you get from the building and safety.
Yes, in fact, we get it by law, a copy of the permit. We will send out a letter to the people. It's a self-reporting type function. They fill the information out on the construction letter, send it back to us. It lets us know what it was, if it's completed, what it cost, if they build it themselves or they hired a contractor. And so it gives us all the information, and we use that information, of course, in the valuation of whatever that they built.
Now, other than change of ownership, how often might you reappraise a property? I understand business properties are reappraised every year?
Business personal property is assessed every year. It does not fall under Prop 13 like real property does. Real property, as I said before, we only come around twice, once when they purchase it, once the date of new construction. That's under Prop 13. Now, there is one other time, and that's if a person thinks that their value is going down below where we've been assessing them, then that's a Proposition 8 decline in value. Now, the lien date for that is January 1st. So
Now, lien date, you mean?
that's the date of our appraisal date that the state says to use. So each January 1st, because that's a year by year, we look at it as of January 1st to see what the property valuation is, compare that to what's on the tax roll. And if the current sellable value is below what's on the tax roll, then the county assessor can temporarily lower the value until such time as the values come back up. Now, the value they had under Prop 13 does not get lost. It never goes away. That's still sitting out there in the computer. And every year that they're under Prop 8, where we've lowered the value, every year we still add that 2% inflationary factor to that old Prop 13 value they had. And someday...
Does this happen automatically, or if there is a decrease in the value of properties in a given area?
Our reassessment
Do
under
you,
Prop 8,
do you do it automatically? or-
we've done over 100+ thousands of automatic Prop 8s. The law says the assessor has a responsibility to automatically lower the value, enroll the lesser of the two values.
What about if the property value increases in a given area?
Okay, well, let's finish with the Prop 8 decline first.
Okay.
Because there's two ways. One's automatically, the other, because we don't want people to be missed. Our computerized programs are not that good out in the deserts and places where there's not a lot of sales. So if a person thinks that their value has gone down below what's on the assessed value, they can fill out a request each year and ask that the assessor specifically review
That's
their
done on the
property.
calendar year.
That's each calendar year, yes. Proposition 8 is each calendar year. Now, once we've lowered them, if we do, then we're obligated under the law each year to reassess it after that to see if it's came back up. And each year as it starts to come back up, we have to bump it up until it reaches where they would have been had we never lowered it.
How are you doing on Y2K?
We're doing great on Y2K. Our first computer function kicks in on July 1st, our first phase. We've rewritten our whole systems because of Y2K, and it's a complex system, Jordan, over 850 programs.
Yeah.
So
Well,
that's,
having been in the computer business for 60 years now, or 50 years, however long it's been, I think it makes us rather blush when we think of how we set up those 2 digits for the date code. And thinking of all those thousands of lines of code that are done in COBOL and all those old languages and so forth,
it was quite a problem
appreciate it.
because a lot of it was written years ago. A lot of the programs was kind of added on or patched up along the
and
way.
documentation
And now
is
we've
not-
had to go in and just rewrite the whole 850 plus programs.
Oh, well, that's good that you're prepared in that, because that must have been a nervous time.
Well, you know, the good thing about it was, since we had to do it anyway because
Did it
of the
better.
Y2K, it gave us opportunity actually to go in and look at all the programs, and we actually will be able to increase public service because of some of the rewrite in the systems that we've done. We will have information faster. We'll have it actually on computer for the public. We used to have the microfiche for people to come in, sit down, and look it up. We're going to have, we'll still have that for the people that want to use it, but we'll have a computer sitting there. They'll be able to look up their parcel real easy. We're going to make it taxpayer friendly to where anyone, they can just kind of put their name in there and it'll bring up what they own, or if they know their parcel number, they can enter that, or their address, and it'll bring up what they own. If they want to see the plat map, it'll say plat map. You just simply press the button there. It'll give them the
Can you
plat
do
map
that?
so they can look
Can you
at
do
that.
that online from home?
Some of the information will be obtainable from the home computer, yes.
Yeah.
Some of it's available right now.
Great.
Actually, all the programs that we administer, of which I hope we can go over some of them here, are online. And they can get information about them on the computer as well.
Well, can you tell us something now about those programs that you?
Well, the first one, which we kind of, I think, touched on a little earlier, was the homeowner's exemption, which I hope that if a person on their primary residence will look and make sure when they look at their tax bill to see that they have a $7,000 homeowner's exemption on it, because it saves them about $75 each and every year. And while that may not be a lot of money, it's every year, so it adds up over a period of years. And they need to make sure that's still on there, because the old law, they had to file every year. The new law says that once it's on there, it stays as long as there's no change in title. But people that own their property for 20, 30 years, as they get older, they decide, you know, I think I'm going to add my son or daughter on. Or maybe they deed the whole property to them. Or they create a family trust. A lot of people are creating a family trust. Well, all of those are changing titles. Now, if they still live in their property, and that's still their primary residence, and they're still in the family trust, they're still eligible for it. But we've got to know that. And a lot of times
Well, what
we
if you
don't.
had a property that had the exemption, and then you made some change of title other than selling it to
That's
someone?
an excellent question, because what happens is the computer automatically cancels what they had and sends them out another homeowner exemption form automatically.
Oh.
Because we're asking them, do you still qualify for it? Because we don't know if they're still living there.
What are the
We don't know if they
qualifications
still-
for the homeowners exemption?
Well, you know, it's really simple. These are about the simplest qualifications. One, you have to live there on January 1st as your primary residence. The second, you have to file for it.
Why did we get a homeowner's exemption?
The state passed that bill about 30 years ago, George. And at the time, that 7,000 covered almost 50% of a person's property tax liability. Unfortunately, it has not been updated. We did try last year to get the legislature to increase it. The bill did not pass. We've got another bill up before the legislature this year to try to raise it from 7,000 to 20,000. And we would like to have an inflationary clause in it so that as inflation goes up, that will escalate. And that will help a lot of people. One of the primary things it does is help stimulate actually real estate sales. It allows people that otherwise might not be able to afford a home to help make it more affordable.
I see, and for us senior citizens, for people in my category, we find that it can be very helpful when we get retire on a smaller fixed income.
You know, George,
Any nickel you save.
that's absolutely true, but you know, there's a number of programs for senior citizens. And the one thing I want to point out is because I got asked this question the other day when I gave a speech. Yes, they can have both. They can have the homeowner's exemption on there and the senior citizen property tax assistance if they qualify for that.
What's
If
that?
their income, it's a bill that was just updated last December 31st. Prior to then, the ceiling or most that a senior could make and still qualify was $13,200 per year. But I sponsored a bill. Senator Jim Brolte introduced it. It passed. The governor signed it into law, and it raised the ceiling up to $33,132. So a senior can make $33,000, little over $33,000, and still qualify for a prorated refund of their property taxes back. And one thing they need to know, it's not welfare. It doesn't create a lien on your property, and they never have to pay it back. Now, the less they make under that $33,000, the more they're going to get back.
You mean get back from previous taxes they paid, or?
The tax bill that we just had
Yeah.
for last December that was just paid, that's the one that'll be prorated. And the filing period's coming right up, as a matter of fact. It's May 15th through August 31st. And in this brochure, there's a toll-free number that they can call to get the forms. It's 800-852-5711. And they can ask for the forms to fill out. Now, even though we talk about home ownership, there's a somewhat similar program for tenants. So if a person is a tenant and they're a senior, and by the way, it's not just a senior 62 years of age or older, it's also blind or disabled. In the case of blind or disabled, it's any age. So if a person is blind or disabled or age 62 or older and their income's under 33,000, they really need.
I think this emphasizes an important point that I found out. And number one is that it is the homeowner's responsibility in your own best interest and to see what your property tax is. And you can't expect to get notification on everything, or the reminders. We get so much in the mail and so forth these days.
Well, you know, that's true, George, but part of our public service reach out policy, at the strategic times of the year, I put notices in the newspaper. I go around to all of my 9 offices. I invite people that need help to come into the office, and I have staff, and I'm there to help them right then. In fact, we just made a round recently to help people, and I also go to the senior centers.
That's
and
great.
We put these brochures and in the senior centers along with some forms so that it's very handy for them. We visited 30 senior centers in San Bernardino County.
Well, from my personal experience, I recommend certainly that everybody get this excellent brochure and go over it point by point and see all the areas that you might qualify for significant savings in your tax bill, and that you're paying the appropriate tax bill.
I can't stress that enough, that they get this. When I give speeches and I give them the brochure and I give them the forms, I'm not trying to make an expert out of them. I just want them to be aware of all the different programs. The homeowner's exemption is only one that we covered, but there's another one that.
I might interject one thing here, is that also there are what you call the lien date, or the date by which you must file or must take action. And you have to be aware of those with regard to each one of those. You can't just come out of the blue. You might be off the cycle and have to wait till the cycle completed.
That's absolutely true, George, and in May, or sometime between May and August, we will make our rounds to the 30 senior centers, and we'll put notices out in the newspaper, letting people know that if they qualify for this program under 33,000, where their income's under 33,000, to be sure to call and get a form, either the toll-free number, or they can contact my staff, and we'll see that they
Can you
get
get
a
these
form.
by fax, incidentally?
It's a state form, and I don't know if the state has it on their webpage or not. Now, we are putting some of ours on our webpage. The Proposition 8 declining value form is available on our webpage. They can get that over the internet. I really can't
No,
answer you
actually,
for sure, but there's an 800 number where they'll gladly send it right to them.
But actually, for all our property tax questions, we deal through the county, through you,
That's
your
true.
office,
That's true.
and your staff. And you will represent us to the state in any way that is necessary.
Any help that we can give on a, where the Senior Citizens Assistance Program is a state program. We will help with the information, we'll help you get the form if you need it. We'll, now, in filling it out, we can't help a person fill that one out, but there is, the senior centers usually have a person that comes around periodically throughout the year. And I suggest that they check with each of their local senior centers if they need help in filling that form out. Now, we can help them limitedly up at the counter if they need our help. They'll probably get more help with that toll-free number or from a person sitting down with them.
Actually, that menu was very good. I went through the menu and got the individual items of information. It was quite good. It takes a lot, and you can redial it all the time if you get lost in it, and lose track of the information. It was excellent. You had some
George, can we go over some of these other programs you
Please.
might not be aware of? For example, now that you're a homeowner, if a storm comes up, or earthquake, or something that creates a sudden damage to your property,
I live pretty
calamity,
close to Landers.
earthquakes, it can be fire, anything that creates a sudden $5,000 damage or more to your property. And that includes the land as well as the structures. So anything that creates over $5,000 in damage, we have a program under Section 170 of the Revenue and Taxation Code where we can temporarily lower your valuations for that damage until such time that you've restored the property. Now, we never penalize you for applying for these programs. We'll lower it while it's damaged. Once you've repaired it, as long as you put it back substantially what it was before the damage, we'll just restore the value to where it was. So we don't add any extra on. Now, if you decide that's a good time to add a room addition that you didn't have before, of course, we're gonna have to pick up that room addition because you didn't have that before. But otherwise, we just put it back to the assessment where it was.
I see.
That's a temporary tax relief for while your property is damaged. Now, senior citizens particularly like to add their children on, and they may have an old Prop 13 value, low Prop 13 value, and a lot of them, they don't want to be reassessed. And if they get a form under this program that's called the parent-child exclusion, they get the form. And again, they need to know about the program, they need to know that they have to file, it's not an automatic thing. We'll exclude that from reassessment, and they can add their son or daughter on, they need the whole property to their son or
Well,
daughter.
there are certain advantages with regard to transferring your property to your children, I presume, rather than waiting till you die and they have to go through some sort of probate on it.
Well, of course, you need to talk to an attorney about the various, there are reasons why a senior citizen might want to create a family trust or add their children on. And some of the reasons do have to do with tax savings and probate and so forth. you really need a senior needs to confirm.
To evaluate
with
their entire
an
financial
attorney on
position.
that to tell them, advise them whether they should or not. We just want to let them know that if they do it, and they either add a son or daughter on title, or deed the whole property to them, or set up a family trust where they get it, if the children want to keep that low Prop 13 value, don't want to be reassessed and have it go way up, they get our parent-child exclusion form, and we won't reassess them. They can save a lot of money that way.
But by the same token, if the property in the area has gone down in value, they might take advantage of getting, well, they could apply for a decreased
Now,
evaluation
that
anyway.
is a good point to remember, because if they want reassessed, that's an opportunity
Go either
to,
way.
if they don't do anything, we will reassess it. And if if it's gone down, that's what they want then. So they've got to decide where their
assessment-
value is and whether they'd like us to reassess it. Actually, if you're, depending on where the property in the county, San Bernardino County being so large, we have one end of the county where the values are going up, and we have two other ends of the county where values are stable or going down.
That's out where I live.
So it really depends on where they're at in the county as to what they might want to do.
I remember though, when they first came through with this idea of on Prop 13, not reappraising over an extended period of time or until the property changed hands. And that gave the allowance to somebody that lived in a neighborhood, lived there 20 or 30 years, and suddenly the property's value skyrocketed, but actually the owner's income didn't necessarily go with it. And it forced a lot of people, it would force a lot of people out of their homes.
Under the old system.
Under the old
Where
system.
the taxes could double or
Yeah.
triple, and it seemed like overnight or in 1 year. Actually, the assessor might not have came around in those days for
Yeah.
2 or 3, 4 years, but when he did come around, the taxes did double or triple. And the nice thing about Prop 13 is that it does set the value when you bought it. That's your base year value. From then on, it can only go up a maximum of 2% unless you add new construction.
Yeah. Good.
Now, there's a couple more programs if I can cover real
Please.
quickly. If a senior happens to be 55 years of age or older, or in the case of a married couple, only one of them has to be. And let's suppose, and where this program here kicks in the best is probably where a couple had children and they're all grown and they're away from home, and in some cases, maybe the husband's even died. And the spouse says, I'd like to sell this, and it's so big, and I'd like to buy a little place over next to my daughter. But golly, I got this low Prop 13 assessment here, my taxes are low, and if I do that, it's gonna shoot way up. Well, under this program, if within San Bernardino County, both the one that she's selling and the one she's buying, if she purchases a property that is equal or lesser, which if you're going from a bigger home to a smaller home, that's probably what's happening. You're probably buying equal or lesser in today's market value, not what's on the tax bill. Not that low value, don't think about that, the one that she had. But if she's buying equal or lesser in today's value, we compare the one she's buying to the one she's selling. And as long as the one she's buying is equal or lesser in market value, then if she gets this form, again, it's not automatic. That's why people gotta know about these
Yes.
programs, because they're not automatic.
It's mentioned in the brochure.
Right, so if they get this form, they fill it out, we will not reassess it. And if it takes her more than a year to find a replacement
Wait a
property.
minute, she has this property she lived in for a number of years and wants to move to another property.
Right.
She's gonna sell this property she's lived in?
If she sells the one she's living in and buys another home, both of them in San Bernardino County.
And if they're approximately the same, she can carry the original assessment value to her new home?
We'll roll it over. If she buys equal or lesser in
Equal or
market
lesser.
value and fills out this form,
For the
we'll
area.
roll that low Prop 13 value she had from the other property over to the new one.
Because otherwise, the new property might be a higher assessed value?
Might shoot up in assessment, might double or triple her taxes. This way she can.
That's very nice.
She can, and
She has the freedom to select her own convenience of where she wants to live without having to worry about what a tax penalty, property tax penalty.
That's true.
I can understand that.
That's something that seniors need to be aware about, because a lot of times that happens. Now, we've already talked about the Proposition 8 decline in value form. Each year, so the deadline is, by the way, happens to be today, so, but it's an every year program. April 15th is the deadline to file for this current year, but since it's an every year thing, people need to be aware of the program. There's always next year.
When can they refile?
Plus, in past years, during the appeal period, to keep the appeals down, and by the way, our appeals went from about 10,000 down to about 3,800. So I've opened up the Prop 8 filing period during the appeal period, so people, because they can file an appeal to request a Prop 8. That's really not the most advantageous way for them to do it, and I'll tell you why. If they fill out our Proposition 8 form, we do the work. If they fill out an appeal form during the appeal period, even though they're saying that my property's gone down below what's on the tax bill,
They have to do the justification?
they have to do the work. Go into San Bernardino to the hearing, present their market evidence and all this. Whereas if all they want is a free reassessment review under Proposition 8 to see if it's gone down below where we're assessing them, we'll gladly do it. All they need is to fill out the form, and we'll gladly do
I'm
it.
a little confused about these filing dates. I have to pay, for example, taxes April 15th.
Well, April 10th is federal.
Federal.
April 10th is the second deadline for the payment of your property taxes.
Or for property.
December 10th
You
is
know,
the
but
first.
paying the taxes, I didn't mean it from that point of view, but to make one of these appeals or make one of these requests for reappraisal or whatever, there's a certain due date involved.
Okay, April 15th is the deadline each year, has been each year, that I've
It
been
has to be in by that, for that
to
year.
request a Proposition 8 review.
Now, when can you if you miss that date, when could you reapply?
Well, as I said, in past years, I've reopened it back up during the filing,
Oh, I see.
formal appeal filing period, which is, by the way,
It's a period of some months.
July 2nd through September 15th.
July 2nd.
Is the appeal filing period, the regular appeal filing period. And in past years, I've opened it back up and put notices in the paper, because I would prefer, if we're gonna do a Prop 8 review, I would prefer that the homeowner not have to bother with doing the work. If they file an appeal, yes, they have to do the work, they have to go and present it, but we have to do the work on our end anyway. So we might as well do the review, and if it comes out that it needs lowered, we'll lower it, and then they never have to bother with it. So
And they still can reappeal it if they don't like the decision.
that's correct. They can still do that. So
That's the best of all
that-
possible worlds.
That's absolutely true. So they can do a Proposition 8 request. If they like the way it come out, they're done. They didn't have to do any more than that. If they don't, they think that it's still too high, they can still appeal that value. That is correct, George.
Are there any other of these that we should know about?
It's not a lot of money, but I'm gonna give you just a hint here that can save you just a little bit of money, and that is this preliminary change of ownership report. Now, that's required for an owner filing a deed to be recorded, to fill this out. The recorder, the state requires it be furnished with a deed. Now, if they don't have it, recorder will still record the deed, but they charge $20 penalty. Now, that's not a lot of money, but you know what? You might as well give
Might
it to
as
them
well,
and
yeah.
save the $20, because the state law
It
says,
expedites the system.
state law says you have to fill that out and give it to the assessor.
Wouldn't your real
And so what
estate,
happens if you don't give it to them? What happens is they collect the $20, and within 45 days, we'll send you out another one. You have 45 days to return it to us by law. So that you can save $20 just knowing you have to fill this out. Now, there's reasons for this form. Not every deed requires reassessment. Some of the information on here is like in A, is this transfer between husband and wife? That's exempt. But not every deed, a woman may have bought it in her maiden name. She may be deeding it to her husband and herself in her married name. And we need to know that. That's exempt, but we need to know that's the case in order to exempt it. Otherwise, we're going to reassess it. B, is it a correction of names? Again, it could be where a woman bought it in her maiden name and she's just changing it from her maiden name to her married name. That's exempt,
So
but we've
there's
got
no
to
way,
know that.
yeah, there's
We-
no way of you knowing it unless we fill
Just
out the
because
form.
it says Mary Smith and Mary Jones doesn't tell us that she's the same person,
Yeah.
unless she fills this out.
Wouldn't your real estate agent help you with that or handle that?
Actually,
part of the
the
transaction?
escrow or real estate agent one would help, if there is one involved, will help
Yeah,
usually
involved.
fill out this
Yeah.
form. And so it usually gets done right there. Now, down toward the bottom of this form, there's J, K, and L. One of them, is this a transfer between parents and children? If you mark yes, we send the form, the parent-child exclusion form. The next one, is this transaction to replace a principal residence by a person 55 years of age or older? If you mark yes, we send the form for that program. So some of these questions are to help us give better public service to help you save money on your property tax.
Well, you certainly learned a lot about this business in the 2 terms you've been in office here to be this detailed and all. There's a tremendous amount of detail involved in it. I can see that it's incumbent on your organization to keep things timely, keep them on schedule.
Well, you know, with so many, as you can see, so many programs that we have to actually save the taxpayer money, it's imperative that I do reach out and try to get this information into property owners' hands. Now, we are on the web. These programs are all there. I had it put on since I've been the assessor. We by having it on the preliminary change of ownership report form, if you mark yes, we send you some of the forms there. So we do everything we can, and as much as we do, believe it or not, we try to make sure no one's missed, but unfortunately, people are missed. And people like yourself can help us in that regard by
Well,
letting
we're
people know
very
about it.
pleased to have this opportunity. And again, from my own personal experience, I heartily recommend that all the taxpayers or property owners in the area get the copy of this brochure, because it tells you the structure of the program, so that when you read some of the opportunities for tax savings that are involved here, it will tell you how to ask the questions intelligently when you talk to your assessor's office and one of your representatives, and they give you the information. So, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you'd like to mention?
Just a couple quick things here. As you pointed out, all of the 9 offices, phone numbers and addresses are listed on the back. Now, we have put this brochure in a number of places to make it easy for people to get a hold of. And like I said before, it's in the senior centers. We try to keep that stocked up, make it easy for the seniors. We have it in, of course, on our counter in all of our 9 offices for the people to have. We've given it to, every time I give a speech or my liaison gives a speech throughout the county, we pass them out so people have it. We have given it to the Chamber of Commerce's, many of them, not all of them, but many of them have our brochures, and we try to put them where it's going to be advantageous.
Well, in addition, we'll have a telephone number at the end of this program where people who want the brochure and can't get it readily in their own area can call, and you will mail it to them. Is that true?
My liaison will be glad to see that anybody that needs this brochure or any of the forms or needs answers to any questions they have about any of the programs that the assessors have, we will be glad to provide them the answers and to help them any way we can.
And there are offices all over the county, and in particular, there's one here in Yucca Valley for the people of the Morongo Basin. Well, Don, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate meeting you and all this wealth of information.
It's been my pleasure, and if you have any more questions, give me a call.
Thank you very much, Don. This is George Morang saying goodbye. I hope you've enjoyed our program, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon again.